Hello everyone, Sergeant Argybright today, and we're going to be reacting to why was Italy so ineffective in World War II? A question, like an age-old question. Okay, let's begin. And this is by the Armchair Historian, another probably one of the better historian YouTubers in my opinion. Especially because of their visuals, right? It's not just because they are usually historically accurate. The heck? But it's also because they have some fantastic, like, animation, like, in drawing skills, I guess I could say. Here, let's up a bit.
NordVPN, the world's leading virtual private network company protecting millions of people on the internet every day.
Thank you,
Hi, I'm
NordVPN.
Griffin Johnson, the Armchair Historian. Today's episode, why Italy was so incompetent during the Second World War.
Wait,
This should be fun.
wait, who is that guy? Was that Mussolini? Oh yeah, it is. Wait,
Competent
I'm
during the
confused.
Second
Who
World
is
War.
that?
This should be fun.
Oh yeah, they're tanks. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm just gonna begin. I know we've only seen the intro, but I mean, I'm gonna start reacting. Their tanks were awful, and it's not because it wasn't really Italy's fault. I mean, it was, but they're preparing for like a long, protracted war in the Alpine Mountains. The Alpine Mountains are basically a bunch of mountains in France, Austria, Switzerland, and Italy. So they're preparing, to invade France or Yugoslavia or whatever. Um, so they designed their tanks for that, right? But it turns out they are fighting in North Africa with their tanks most of the time. And there's a huge difference between mountains and just flat desert, right? So that's why their tanks perform so badly. And also they're always behind because what they did, they would spend all their time because they were already outdated. So then they spent like so much time developing a newer model of a tank to compete with everyone else, but by the time they were done with that new model, everyone else had already moved to a newer model, and they were always ahead of Italy, technologically. Uh-oh, he fell.
Fascist Italy's military has long been the target of ridicule aimed at its lack of competence and commitment to duty. In this video, we'll be evaluating the factors that inhibited the Italian military during the Second World War and examine whether or not the poor reputation of Fascist Italy's military, which continues to this day largely in the form of internet memes, is entirely deserved.
I want to see some of these. Hold on.
Which continues to this day largely in the form of internet memes.
Hold on. What? Oh yeah, this. Oh, never mind. That's something else. Oh my god.
Now let's begin by providing a bit of context. Joining me today is potential history to do just that.
Since 1922, Italy was under the leadership of Benito Mussolini, known as Il Duce, or the leader. What Il Duce imagined was nothing less than the
Oh, thank you for actually having an accurate map of Italy. I appreciate that.
restoration of the Roman Empire, an ambition even Hitler prodded, going as far as to call him one of the Caesars. Now, although I'm sure
Really?
that Big Chan himself meant every word of his intentions, in reality it turned out, well, I won't spoil it for you. Bad. It turned out very bad. Even though there were clearly grand ambitions behind the troops Mussolini sent to the field, the fact of the matter was that they received substandard equipment.
It looks like a World War One thing.
Behind the troops Mussolini sent to the field, the fact of the matter was
Though
that they received sub.
Is that World
Standard
War II?
equipment,
That doesn't look like it.
thinly armored and very undergunned tanks.
Yeah.
If you want to learn
But yeah, well, like I said, the tanks weren't designed for North Africa. They were designed for the Alpine Mountains.
more specifically about Italian armor, check out my video in the description below.
Let's start by analyzing Italy's leadership during the Second World War. Naturally, we'll start with Big Chin himself. Mussolini was eager to get involved, but Pietro Badoglio and Italo Balbo, two of his top marshals, advised him to be patient. In his mind, there was no doubt that the world would soon be subjected to Axis rule, and he was hoping to secure territory for Italy. As a result, Mussolini ignored his army's logistical deficiencies, which became very apparent just 2 weeks into the Italian invasion of France. This was exacerbated by the lack of equipment, some of which had been lost due to Mussolini's involvement in wars in Spain and East Africa.
Oh,
To
yeah.
make matters worse, the Italian high command was simply not up to par with those of the other great powers.
Only 700 died in the invasion of Albania? That is quite interesting, actually.
Many of Mussolini's marshals only gained their positions because of their political affiliation and personal loyalty rather than military experience. Incompetence was not limited to the upper echelons of the command structure, however. McGregor Knox, in his book on the subject, provides the following explanation as to why. Italian society's peasant base, relatively small industrial sector, and narrowly selective educational system meant a pervasive shortage of technical talent that placed severe limits on the extent to which the Italian armed forces could imagine, commission, operate, and maintain complex machinery. This translated into a widespread failure to adapt to the changing nature of combat, with many officers preparing their soldiers for First World War era scenarios.
Yeah, because, again, I'm going back to, Italy was preparing for, like, a drawn-out war in France. Or, he was preparing for a drawn-out war in the Alpines, more specifically. He wasn't really prepared for Germany to just gobble up France in 6 weeks.
Equipping them with outdated weapons. In terms of industrial capacity and natural resources, Italy was also at a disadvantage. To give you an idea of how dire the situation truly was, at one point the Italian infantry divisions were short roughly 15,000 contemporary artillery.
Wait a minute. Let me see something. Okay, we're at 324. There's an inaccuracy. I just thought of it. The Doconese Islands, I think that's how you say it, were part of Italy since after the Italo-Turkish War. I think that's what it's called. That was in 1910, I think, where Italy seized Libya and these islands that I'm circling from the Ottoman Empire. Okay, let's go back. Just randomly thought of it. Okay.
Guns, but the Italian military factories.
Oh my gosh. Really? They're making it look like Hearts of Iron 4. If y'all know what that is, it's a really fun World War II strategy game. It's pretty popular.
Only produced 8% of that number in a year. Furthermore, the artillery that was available to the Italian soldiers was often defective in some way. In Frank Joseph's book, he quotes an Australian soldier, Robert Donovan, who professed that the Italian artillerymen was definitely good at their trade, but we were saved from serious casualties because of the amazingly poor quality of their projectiles. Many failed to burst, and those that did were ineffective.
Their artillery was very...
Throughout the war, the industries of Britain and its allies outcompeted Italian industries in producing artillery, aircraft, and ships alike. And much like Germany, Italy
I thought they were pretty good with their navy, though.
Suffered from a dearth of natural resources, like coal and oil, that were needed to power those factories in the first place. Now that we understand that both Italy's command and resource output were inferior to its neighbors, let's analyze Italy's forces and equipment. The Navy was by far the best thing that Italy had going for it. Its presence in the Mediterranean Sea was imposing, its destroyers, submarines, and torpedo boats outnumbering those of Britain and France.
They keep referencing Hearts of Iron 4 over and over again.
Region, but the Navy suffered from two significant drawbacks. Number one, it was hindered hindered by fuel shortages, and number two, like the infantry, it could not depend on the Air Force. This is largely a result of the Air Force's disorganized state, being composed of myriad aircraft types. Like the infantrymen bearing World War I-era weapons, some Italian pilots were forced to fly in outdated biplanes, even during the final stages of the war.
Jeez.
Not to mention, in September 1939,
That must have been a funny sight to see while the Germans were out here with literal jets. The Italians are with World War I era biplanes.
than half of Italy's planes were operational. But of all three military branches, one could easily make the argument that ground forces suffer the most from equipment and supply shortages. In 1940, only about a quarter of Italy's divisions were supplied with a sufficient amount of weapons and rations.
What?
Those weapons that did make it into the hands of these soldiers were at times outdated, with the newly adopted Carcano rifle being sometimes exchanged for World War I-era rifles because of its limited range, accuracy, and jamming issues.
You always hear about how the Soviets never had equipment, right? They didn't have any equipment, but you never hear about the Italians, which is interesting.
What's more, as of 1937, each infantry division was composed of only 2 infantry regiments instead of 3.
Okay, well, the thing about that, they did that on purpose, because what it does, it makes you so that you have more actual divisions in total, so you can cover more area, and so you can be a lot more mobile. So it's not like it was a mistake or anything. Oh no, that's not good. But also, this advantage is kind of negated because, first of all, more divisions means more leaders, and the Italian leaders were already bad enough. And with all these divisions, they're gonna have a huge shortage of leaders in their ranks. So that definitely also affected the Italian army. And also, yes, these divisions were fast, but the British had like motorized and mechanized divisions. So even though these divisions were pretty fast, the British could still run circles around them.
Thus, as the total numbers of divisions increased, the fighting capacity of each division decreased. Each of these new divisions needed a new commander as well, and Italy suffered from a sort of martial brain drain. Granted, the binary system did provide each Italian division with more maneuverability, but this
That's an inaccurate map.
The binary
Italy, they controlled that little area. And they controlled this little strip of land that is now controlled by Chad today.
System did provide each Italian division with more maneuverability, but this advantage was nullified by the fact that the Italians were facing motorized enemies on the battlefield.
Oh, wow.
By and large, the Italian divisions were non-motorized as the country did not have the industrial capacity to produce automotive parts. On the whole, we can definitively conclude that the Italian military performed poorly during the Second World War.
Yeah, there's so many factors that play into this. Like, even if they did have a really powerful industry, like Germany, for example, they still suffer from a huge shortage of resources, so they can't really produce anything anyway. And that same problem affected the Germans. The Germans had a huge lack of resources, so they couldn't produce anything, or at least they couldn't produce their full potential.
It failed to make a breakthrough in France, failed to invade Greece and Yugoslavia without first soliciting German support.
In Yugoslavia, they didn't fail in Yugoslavia. I don't know about that.
And failed to assert control over North Africa despite outnumbering British forces in Libya 10-1.
10-1? Are you kidding me? I knew the Italians outnumbered them, but 10-1? Are you... What? That is insane. Wow, I had no idea. 10-1, and they still lost. the British pushed them back. Oh boy. Oh yeah, fun fact. The Italians only had one successful campaign, one successful operation the entire war. And that was the invasion of British and French Somaliland. Actually, did they take French Somaliland? I don't know.
Its planned invasion of Egypt. As such, Italy's string of failures and early capitulation in 1944 can be better attributed to brash leadership, a lack of industrialization, scarce resources, as well as equipment shortages and deficiencies, as opposed to a scarcity of brave and dutiful soldiers. This seems to be the consensus among modern historians, although in William L. Shirer's book, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, another less heard of argument is put forth. Schreier points to the lack of popular support among Italian people.
Oh yeah, and that's why they surrendered in 1943, because actually, Mussolini didn't have full control over the country. The king of Italy did. And what he did, he basically said, okay, Mussolini, you're out of here. And that's how that's why Italy surrendered.
Unlike the Germans, never truly embraced fascism to explain the inability of Mussolini's regime to address the problems we've discussed throughout this video. Now on to our sponsor, NordVPN.
Okay, well, that was a fun video. It brought up a lot of interesting points. Yes. And the maps were relatively accurate, I guess. There was a couple of inaccuracies, but still, I can appreciate. I can still appreciate it. But yeah, check this video out on your own. Their channel, it's pretty good. Thank you all for watching. Tell me what you want me to react to next. I read every single comment, so if you make a comment on what video I should watch, I will see it. And I'll probably react to it. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.